Hello, everybody. It's 4:53 p.m. Central Time on the 19th of September, 2022, and I'm doing a second video today. This is on top of the previous video I did regarding the 7.6 down here in Mexico. Still dealing with that. Devastating damage across the coast of Mexico, as well as possible tsunami activity. I haven't had video of that yet. First it was canceled, or then it was issued, then it was canceled, then it was issued. So we're going to wait on that. But man, big earthquake, 7.6 down in Mexico. I'm making this video now because a new earthquake has struck in the United States. More rare, 4.4 earthquake up in northwest Arizona. And I'd like to go pull the coordinates on this, go put them in on Google Earth, see where we're coming in. Europeans have it at 4.4, as well as the USGS. You guys can pause that and read it if you want to. That's a little post I made over on my YouTube community page. Littlefield, Arizona. Pull the coordinates, put them in. They have an auto-generated depth of 10 kilometers. That may be revised up or down. I would think it would be more shallow, but we'll wait and see. They may not revise that. We'll put the coordinates in here on Google Earth, see where it takes us in. I've got a good idea of what's already there at the location, but I just want to wait and see how close we're getting to it. Okay, yeah, we're really close. Okay, you see this right here? We've got a few volcanoes I'd like to mention. One of them, C. Miller, the other, Wolf Hole, the other, Dutchman's Draw. So we're right next to Dutchman's Draw. Now, Dutchman's Draw is really just on a volcanic field. I would call it a volcanic field. It's not really marked as a volcanic field. However, you can see spreading from Wolf Hole all the way back up across the border, we have ancient volcanoes. And these, again, are super old. You would think of these as more like forming back when there was water in here. There was an ancient inland ocean that used to be all the way across Nevada, going up. You can see the old watermarks here. For instance, here's Yellowstone is up here, for instance, but we go back down here, of course, and this is where you can see the watermark from the old oceans that used to be there, and they drained out. Now, professionals don't tell you this, but they drained out through the Grand Canyon. That's what made the Grand Canyon, the ancient inland oceans that drained out here. Back when there used to be, well, something used to be here, which I'm not going to get into too much now. But I do want to show you something that backs up to this, that I have to show you, that I told you I was going to tell you about. And I didn't want to have to do it in this video, but I have to because the earthquake is on the back side of what I found. So what did I find? I found a 300-mile-long ancient star fort, where I'm going to measure it out for everybody to see. It's indisputable what I found. And I measured it already to see how long it is from the point of the tip of the star fort up here, all the way down to here. And it's 300 miles. Now, I'm not doing the exact measurement now, but you can see it's like 299 or 298.9 or whatever. Anyway, you come down here, and then it makes a bend and goes down this way to the east by southeast. Sorry, I almost just coughed into the camera. So, or into the microphone and camera. So you see it on this side, right? Well, it does the same thing exactly 300 miles this way, down to this. And it does the same angle going back down this way, same distance, about 75 to 100 miles, depending on how far you measure it, back to the base. So this is the classic star fort shape, but it's 300 miles long. Now I'm going to tell you something. Guess what's over here on the right-hand side of this star fort shape and on the left-hand side of this star fort shape? Well, I'll show you. Area 51 and the nuke test sites are over here on this side, and that's not up for debate. Here are all the nuke sites. Wait for it to load. These are all the nuke places. Right next to here is Area 51, which is right here at Groom Lake. So they've nuked one side. Now what's on the other side? 29 Palms Marine Base over here on this side. See where it says this? Desert Hot Springs and so forth. 29 Palms military base is on this side of the star fort. Now guess what's right in the middle? Vandenberg Air Force Base, right here in the very center tip middle, and at the very tip are quarries. So I found this myself. How did I find it? Earthquake started to strike along the middle side of this, and that's what drew my eye to it and caused me to see it. Now this is not the only one. There's another one here, but it's even more weathered, and it's where the old ocean used to be, and it's not up for debate. It does this. It goes up to the north. In between here and here is our supervolcano, our oval-shaped supervolcano at the pinnacle tip of it, and then it comes back down this way, and you can barely see it. It's weathered over time. Now, there's a third one that goes up here, up to Bend, Oregon, and comes back down, and there's another crater on the backside of it. This is indisputable. And each one is 300-something miles long. The other two are harder to measure, of course, because they're more weathered. All three of them back up to the old ancient inland ocean. I stand by this. This is my discovery. Nobody can take it from me or tell me I'm wrong because I measured it and found it myself. And I hate to be so forceful about it, but we have to talk about this. It's a big deal, guys, that we get an earthquake now on the backside of it, back over at Dutchman's Draw, which is literally on the backside of it, right here. So this comes out, let me show you again, comes down and makes a bend in, comes up this way, makes a bend in, and we're on the backside of it over here where the other volcanoes are, where the Grand Canyon is that drained out the ancient inland oceans, and they try to tell us that it formed from the Colorado River. I've got news for everybody. Did you know that the Grand Canyon goes up at the middle point to the highest point? And that for water to flow through there, it would have had to have dammed up at least? That water doesn't flow uphill, or very rarely does, maybe if it's in severe motion going downhill, can it hit an uphill curve or an uphill slope and then go back down? But again, water doesn't flow uphill. So for this to erode the way it did, and then you can see the old water erosion marks that existed, and then people say, well, where did it drain out to? It drained out to where all the sand has been left behind, which is so obvious, down to the south. And over to the east, you can also see where it drained out from the north side of this ancient inland ocean. They tell us these are from wind erosion marks. No, because you can see over to the east the badlands that are left behind from the flow out that happened over the east of this freshwater ocean that was left behind. And then now we have the remnants of Salt Lake City here. And Salt Lake City, the salt flats, the leftover minerals that were in the ocean that evaporated out, that did have some salt in it, of course. And that is the ancient inland ocean story. And we're right in the middle of it with the new earthquake, which is why I have to tell you about it in the star force shape to begin with. Star forts might sound a little crazy, but once you understand that we're dealing with an ancient civilization that used to use wireless power, I'm not exaggerating. I have to tell you about this. I know I'm going to lose subscribers over this, but it is what it is. My viewers expect me to bring them what I find. And that's what it is. If I find a 300-mile-long star fort, did you know that that 300-mile-long star fort I also measured previously? And that we took from the very back tip of this like an arrow, and we followed it out over to the east by southeast in the direction which it points, and it goes across the Pacific, right past Hawaii, and it goes down to here, in between these two, which are even bigger, and it points right into the middle, in between, I'll wait for this to load so you can see it, between the two, star-shaped plate boundaries that are over here at the Solomon Islands. And it points right into the middle in between these two, here and here, which goes down to you'd have to, again, for somebody to build something like this, it would be insane. Now, finally, I'd like to tell somebody in my audience, somebody particularly, you guys need to get this over to a video maker, a few video makers, actually. We need to get it to Martin Libke. We need to get it to Paul Cook. We need to get it to John Levi. I don't know if all three of those guys even get along, but you all need to understand, I know I'm using a globe Earth at this point. I'm not a flat earther yet, but what I found is phenomenal. You need to understand this too. This ties into the quake that just struck up here in Arizona. That I found that if you measure between these quote-unquote volcanic islands, if you measure between the middle of them, we'll start over here on the east side of South America, from Ascension Island, that's supposedly volcanic there, and measure it over to the coast of South America, closest point, and you're going to come out to about 1,400 miles, almost right down to the point. We could just do it within a few miles. I can go down in just on the center of Ascension Island just to measure it for you, and it's going to be 1,400 miles to measure between Ascension Island and the coast of South America. See how it goes right down? Literally, we're right at 1,400. I'm going on land. Our closest point is 14 exactly right to the coast. You see that? Okay, 1,400 miles from Ascension Island to South America. Now, what would you do if I told you that everywhere across the Pacific we have exactly spaced out 1,400 miles going from between Easter Island, we have to measure right in between the two volcanoes, and it's 1,400 miles from there over here. Let me show you. See? Exactly 14. Exactly 14. Down to the mile. That's 2 now. From the Atlantic, from Ascension Island to the coast of South America, 1,400. Now we're going from Easter Island to the next seamount. Now we're going to measure from here. This is phenomenal what I found. Again, this means these are man-made. Well, maybe not man-made. I don't know what to say made them. But I can tell you this. To get it down to the center of French Polynesia here, look. 1,400 miles exactly to this center of this, what looks like an arrow, and it is an arrow. Because what I found is phenomenal. These are pentagon-shaped and hexagon-shaped and triangular-shaped islands that are pointing in the direction of the next, group or cluster of islands that goes over to the west even further. We're going to measure from here over to the west to the next cluster right here. See, we go right in the middle of them, and we're at another 1,400 miles. Okay, now what did I just do? I just took you from Tonga, here at our giant triangular bend of the supposed ancient plate of Zealandia, and we measured 1,400, 1,400, 1,400, 1,400, 1,400, all the way across the planet on islands that are shaped like pentagons and so forth, and hexagons. Now, coupling that in with the earthquake up to the north, which is right here on this giant, what I would call star fort shape, but it's continental sized, it backs up to the mountain range. It points across the Pacific over here to the other two that are connected onto the plate over here. We're getting earthquakes on all of them. Now, I'm going to show you one more that I found just this week when a 4.4 earthquake struck to the north up in Santa Rosa, California. Now, I have to search Santa Rosa, or maybe the earthquake is still on the feed here. I don't know if it is. I'd have to go check. Let's go see if the 4.4 is still on the feed from Santa Rosa. Yeah, it sure is. Okay, great. That'll make it a little easier for me to get the coordinates. I noticed they downgraded it to 4.3, but whatever. We also had a 4.4 off the coast. So that's 3 4.4s across the United States. But whatever. Let's pull the coordinates and show you the other star fort that I found that is smaller, but it is now, to me, confirmed that it is. This is where the earthquake struck a few days ago at Santa Rosa, at the very tip of this, which is how I found this to begin with. I was mind blown to see that this is at the very tip of it, but tip of what? People in California were asking me. They say, hey, I live here. Will you show me what you're talking about? Well, the earthquake struck right here. Again, you see the coordinates? Now, I put a little policeman place mark at the very pinnacle tip of this, and maybe I need to turn it back around south, perfectly south. There we go. Okay. So to see this, now again, how did I see this, right? Well, the east side of this is pretty easy to see, actually. It comes down and goes down to Simi Valley. I'm going to measure it for you to show you it's exactly 17 miles long from the very pinnacle tip of it right here. Again, you see it. It's the pinnacle tip. And then you can see, do you see the west side? This is not imagery. This is not from the flyovers or anything like that. So this is actually in the topography. And I'm just doing a rough measurement here to show you what I did for my viewers the other day. But again, this takes us out to 16 miles down to the center of Simi Valley. But then I'm going to show you right here, this is the topography. Do you see it? This is not from a flyover. So this is in the actual farm fields and so forth. Do you see what I'm talking about? How it goes back this way. Let me measure it for you. This is not pareidolia. We're not seeing this. This is not me seeing this. This is actually, let me turn off the line here. So we come down and we go over this way. Well, does it do it on the other side? It sure does. Let me show you. Following it from the little policeman place mark down this way. And guess what? These are, on both sides, these are national forests. National forest. This comes down this way and makes a bend this way. Do you see it now? It comes up and makes a bend this way and this way. It's the star fort shape. And it backs up to Geyser Peak, Castle Rock Springs. Castle Rock of all things. They named it Castle Rock. Anyway, to see it, the only way I saw this was when the earthquake struck right out at the pinnacle tip of it. So that is 100%. It's hard to see. It's ancient and weathered. and we get over here on the east side, and they're both national forest on either side. They've made them national forest. Backs up to the volcano that's been blasted out there. Now, you'd have to look into the history of what a star fort is, and maybe I should just show you, if it comes up, star fort. Here we go. Now, let me show you a picture of a star fort that's recent. Just in the past few years, the Republican National Convention was held at a star fort on the East Coast for Trump, of all people. I'm not kidding, but again, you can zoom in and see what I'm talking about here. This is just one. This is in Holland, my people in Holland. Do you see the shape here? It's the same proportions, but this is smaller, of course. This is for a town. They also do them for cities. They also apparently did them for continents. But to build something a continent size, 300 miles long in the Mojave Desert, backing up to the mountain range, the false story on the Grand Canyon, having Area 51 and the nuke test sites on one side and the military base, the Marine base on the other. What would you do, one final thing, if I told you that over here at Micronesia, this thing, Micronesia itself, is an ancient weathered pentagon, and it too has the arrows on both sides, this one in particular, pointing which direction to look. But on the east side of Micronesia is a star fort called Nan Madol. Nan Madol. Do you see Na Island and so forth? I can turn on the gallery here for Google, and it'll turn on all kinds of imagery and so forth for Nan Madol, which you can barely see. It's weathered over a long period of time, but it too was an ancient star fort, and they tell us that the islanders built this for the local whatever. No. This is miles long and made out of giant hexagonal basalt. Nan Madol. Now, where have we heard Nan Madol recently? I mean, Micronesia itself being a giant man-made pentagon, and on the east side of the man-made pentagon, we have the star fort, confirmed there, made of hexagonal basalt. It would mean that Micronesia was built from the ocean floor up a long time ago in the shape of a pentagon, and it's weathered down over time. That this would be an ancient man-made structure. I'm not kidding. I know I'm going to lose subscribers over this. I told everybody I was going to tell you about this. I wasn't expecting to do this today with all the earthquake activity going on. But with the earthquake activity matching up with a lot of the locations, like here, for instance, at Micronesia, from New Caledonia going north, that we get the big earthquake activity at these spots next to these man-made islands, and then we get a 4.4 on the back side of this giant star fort shape that I told you I was going to tell you about. And then we have the previous 4.4 up here to the north just a few days back at the other star fort that I just found at Santa Rosa. We cannot ignore it. I know the professionals aren't going to agree, and there's going to be a bunch of people who deny it, but I don't care. It's what it is. So what's causing it? Well, very low frequency. Very low frequency is what's causing the earthquakes, spreading out across the West Pacific with the deep earthquake activity, the forecasting and so forth we can do based upon it. We have a big amount of activity taking place, but I cannot overlook this in light of what's going on. I said I was going to tell everybody, I'm not a flat earther. Don't hate me for not being a flat earther. I still think that the earth is somewhat spherical, but I know there's going to be a lot of people who are going to start to question based upon what we're seeing. It's worthy to question at this point. There's some reason they're not showing us the planet the way it should be shown, from a camera out in space, far away. Right? Okay, so we're getting very, very digressive here into other topics that I don't want to go into right now. But I can tell you this. What I found, starting to confront my full, understanding of the way the world works and what's going on and what's been hidden from us. I can't believe it took me till this year to find the star fort shape, but thank God for the other mud flood channels and all that crap who showed me, because now I found it. And that's insane, because that points across the entire Pacific. It means that there was a civilization that was building structures that are tied to one another somehow, very low frequency wise, and they're talking to one another still, even though they're not functional, or maybe they are. Clearly they were destroyed at some point in the past. You can see the freaking craters inside of each one on the back side. For instance, like I showed you in the United States, 3 different sets of craters in massive supervolcanic craters, not just little volcanoes. And then the volcanic islands spaced 1,400 miles apart all the way across the Pacific. From frickin' Easter Island, of all the frickin' places, all the way across over to Micronesia, where it's shaped like a pentagon. It's got a star for it. And they just named the typhoon in Japan after it. The typhoon that just hit Japan yesterday, is named Typhoon Nan Madol. Do you want to see? Here, look. Typhoon Nan Madol. And they put it all together in one word. So when you search it, it doesn't come up with the star fort location. Typhoon, there it is. Typhoon Nan Madol. Typhoon Nan Madol. CNN. There it is. CNN. I'm telling you, you know why they put Nan Madol as the name? This past week, maybe 2 weeks ago at the most, I started talking about Nan Madol publicly. Other channels started talking about Nan Madol. And then all of a sudden, they named the tropical storm after Nan Madol. It just can't get any weirder. More weird. Weirder's not a word, right? Okay, I've got to get a forecast together for the rest of the planet. I'm not joking on we are going through an overdrive, seismically speaking, but I had to make my video now on this, on that in particular, because, man, that's a big deal. To get the earthquakes on the backside of the star forts, on the front tips and the backside. Then we have multiple 7 striking across the planet. I haven't looked in Mexico to see what's there. It'll probably take me a few hours to inspect, see if there's anything weird there. What if there is? Go check. I don't know. Maybe somebody will find something. You need to go look. And now you know what shape to look for. Speaking of what to look for, look what's going on over here. Right next to Italy. And I mean just a few miles to the east. What is that, 100 miles? Albania was struck by a mid-range 4. Now, I've got a warning going for north-central Italy. They just got hit with major floods. Right here at north-central eastern Italy along the Adriatic Sea, we're so close. I mean, already we've got a 4.5 striking right next to you on the plate boundary. Don't let your guard down. It looks like we're going to go up to 4.9 to 5 in Italy. Over to the west, the plate boundary is moving as well. Same-sized earthquakes from the letter X at the Azores all the way back to the plate boundary over here next to Portugal, coming out of Gibraltar. There's a halfway point between the earthquakes over here in the eastern Mediterranean and the earthquakes over here at the Atlantic. And if we go up and around the bend of the plate, that puts us right in here as the halfway point. Again, you got to go up and around the bend of the plate. And that just, again, South France, North Italy, Central Italy. I'm trying to get it down to like a 200-mile range. But right now, you can see it's all the same size earthquakes. I'm showing you everything 3 point something and greater. Here's everything 2 and 0 and 1. All that does is fill in where the plate boundaries are. And maybe I should show the plate boundary in Europe, just for the people who have never seen it, so you can see for yourself what I'm talking about with the plate boundaries. Over here in Europe, check it out. Red lines, plate boundary. Going up through Italy, dead ends into the plate itself up at Switzerland. And the halfway point between the quakes over here at the Atlantic and the quakes over here over in the eastern Mediterranean, if you go up and around, puts us right in here. So that's the warned area. I'm not going to change it. Wow. What an update. Again, I wasn't planning on going down that road, but I have to. My viewers expect for me to tell you what I find, even if it's the most mind-blowing, change your view of everything thing. It confronts everything I knew. I didn't know that the Grand Canyon drained out on its own with a big ocean. I always thought that it was the Colorado River. Now it all makes more sense. Again, they don't want us to know about the ancient civilization that was here because that then ties in with all kinds of stuff. Oh my God. It ties in with wireless power. It ties in with, advanced civilizations before us that we're told didn't exist. I mean, they went through the trouble of hiding a country called Tartaria. I found it on the map myself from the 1500s all the way up to the mid-1700s, claiming California as their possession. They had a navy, and they were hidden from us. Not Tartar China, Tartaria. China was part of this confederation of nations, apparently. Tartaria, you know where it existed? And I found it on the map myself, at a map that sold for like $87,000 at Sotheby's or something. It's right where the old Crimea is. Tartaria, literally on the map, from the 1500s to the 1700s, South Black Sea to North Black Sea, going up here along the Sea of Azov, down around and over to the east across the Caucasus Mountains, and to the north up into Ukraine a little bit. And Russia just invaded all that. Literally, they just invaded. The spot that Russia invaded is the spot marked as Tartaria on the map. And then it shows Greater Tartar over to the east. And then it shows California marked as an island in the 1500s and 1600s as a possession of this country. There were people here that were advanced before the United States. And then this ties in with hidden civilizations, buried cities, melted buildings, geopolymer, all of it. And by the way, I do have a message for all those people covering those topics. You're all apparently right in some aspect. Some of them melted, others are geopolymer, some are man-made ancient structures from God knows who, and who could build buildings 300 miles long? Made of mountains. We're not talking about the Chinese wall, the Great Wall, going on thousands of miles, a few dozen to 100 feet high. We're talking about mountain-sized things. Who could build mountain? Who could raise mountains up? And that is mountainous. Those are thousands of feet high coming up off the ground. We're not talking about the ones in the ocean that go down 10 and 13,000 feet in the depths of the ocean and come up a few thousand feet above the ocean, 1,400 miles perfectly spaced out across the Pacific. Now, I have thought of a potential natural explanation. I got to do this. I got to come up with a possible natural explanation just because. It doesn't mean that it is natural. It doesn't mean that it's man-made either. 1,400 miles spaced out could also be a very low frequency wave that's coming up across that distance. And that the peaks come up at those points, 1,400 miles, because that's the distance the wave is apart. The peaks of the wave, a 1,400 mile long wave, ultra low frequency coming up from the core of the earth, that could also cause the equal spacing of the islands. There's only two things that could cause equal spacing of islands, 1,400 miles exactly across something, the whole planet wide, whether it's flat or round. And that's man-made or some kind of wave that's organized. So I know there's going to be people that'll just go with the wave then. You know, you have two choices, basically. You can't tell me they're not spaced out. That's a proper double use of a double negative. But you can't tell me it's not spaced out perfectly. So the only explanations then are man-made perfectly spread out, or other-made perfectly spread out, or it's naturally made perfectly spread out. And if it's naturally made perfectly spread out, that's weird. Naturally perfectly anything is weird. What troubling concepts to contemplate on top of the big earthquake activity already going on across the Pacific? I would urge you to have a plan and be prepared. I'm going to have a forecast out in the next few hours, most likely, maybe going into tomorrow. I'm going to wait and see what happens over the next few hours before I issue any more warnings, or we already have warnings going for the west coast of the United States off the coast of California for 5.9 to 6. We already have warnings going off the coast of Japan still for near 7.0 level. We have warnings going down here at Chile, down on the coast of Chile for the same sized activity, 7-ish. So I'm not going to cancel those. I will add in the Caribbean with this going on right to your west. We have the plate boundary that goes over to the east. Look at the plate boundary here. I'm sorry this update keeps going and going and going, but I hate to mix topics too like this, but I have to. Going down across the coast over to the east, look at the plate boundary. It goes right over into Dominican Republic. Do you see this? And then it goes over to Puerto Rico and over to the Atlantic. Now back to my globe here. I know there's going to be people who freak out on the globe, right? Well, guys, I'm not a programmer, so I can't make my own flat. It is flat on the screen. I mean, you can touch your hand at the screen. It's flat. As my buddy Tat says, flat all the way around, right? Okay, anyway. Over to the east, we're going to watch over here. You see which way it flows. Now, there is a possible explanation on this, that we're dealing with a ring-like shape instead of a globe-like shape. And that maybe that's why they don't show us Earth from a distance with a camera. You might see a giant donut or a ring instead of a round Earth. Who knows? There's some reason that they're not showing it to us. Anyway, the earthquakes show that there's a spread going on across both sides of the Pacific that then spreads out to the other plates adjacent. and you can follow it like a river. You see how it focuses in over towards Europe, for instance, and you see how it focuses in over towards the east. Go back and watch my other videos if you're curious about that. I will get a forecast out today, and that will cover next week's activity expected for the next 7 days. So the last 7 to 9 days, it's been 9 days since the other 7.6, and it's been 15 days or 14 days since this all started. This all started with a 7 on one side and a 6 on the other. On one side of what? That's the question. I want to find out. I'm going to find out. I'm going to freaking find out. And when I do, if it's anything else other than what I was already told it was, I'm just going to absolutely melt down and I'll do it publicly. That's fine. It's deserved if that's the case. I'm not going to stop until I find out. Anyway, word up, much love. You guys, be safe. You need to have an earthquake plan. Obviously, 7s are spreading out across the plates. 4s are going up into the United States, up next to the ancient volcanic locations on the backside of the star fort. We're looking for activity off the west coast of the United States, right next to where the other 4.4 struck, right next to the other star fort. So there's a lot going on, and I'm trying to wrap my head around it. I'm making discoveries along the way as I'm doing this. Clearly, we're not done discovering things yet when it comes to geophysics, seismic, man-made versus not, other-made versus not, where it's coming from, VLF, ULF, very low frequency, ultra-low frequency. It's a very exciting time for me in the world of geophysics. Maybe not for the professionals. They might be shrugging and ugging, but who cares? They were wrong about fracking earthquakes. What else are they wrong about? All right. Enough ranting. You guys, enough black screen. Time to upload to YouTube.